So whenever I get a new jig or a new set of jigs, there's always two modifications that I'm going to do to these jigs before I ever throw them. And one of these modifications helps me get more bites, and then the other modification helps me actually translate those bites into more catches. I hook into those bass a lot better and miss way less bass when they actually do bite. So these modifications are super quick, super easy. They take about 5 seconds each, and they actually make a huge difference. So the first modification, and this I really do to all of my skirted baits, not just jigs, spinner baits, chatter baits, even frogs, with the legs as the skirts. I really do this to all of my skirted baits, and that is to trim them up. Any bait you get is really going to have a very long skirt right out of the package, and it's just far too long. It impedes the action of your trailers. It looks kind of goofy in the water, in my opinion, and I just seem to get less bites on them. So I'll always trim up my jig trailers, and how far I do it, I like to go right behind the bend of that hook, maybe a 1/4 inch behind the bend of that hook. So I'll just go around. I don't go flat, I go kind of at a U shape, I suppose, and I'll just go around there, trim up that skirt, spin it around a little bit. As you can see, it's already pushing it out farther, which is another thing. It kind of makes it move a little bit more in the water, gives it a little bit bigger presence, even though the skirt itself is actually smaller. Because they're smaller, they bend out, they have more spring in them, and they're more lifelike in the water. So there's pretty much how I trim it up. I'm not too specific, I'm not like counting threads or anything, but as you can see, here's another one. Trimmed up right behind that bend of that hook, and it seems to get a lot more bites this way. Bass just definitely seem to prefer the trimmed skirt look over a full length skirt. And the second modification is a lot of guys will trim up their weed guards, and I'll sometimes do that with swim jigs, but generally with a flipping jig I won't actually trim it at all. I'll just spread it out, kind of take my fingers, bend it out a little bit, make sure not to tear them out, but I'll just bend it out. Kind of hard, but bend it out so it's a lot wider. That way, it's now much easier for that hook to come through, because it's only coming through about half the thickness of weed guard. But another benefit is that the weed guard is now a lot wider, as you can see. So it actually has more coverage for that hook point. So when I'm coming through thick brush, it's even more weedless this way than stock when it's real thick. So that hook point comes through a lot easier, which helps me catch more fish. The hookup ratio is a lot better. But also that wider weed guard, I'm trying to bend it out a little bit more here. It's a pretty fresh jig. It's a little bit stiff. But that wider weed guard also makes it more snagless, more weedless, and I pretty much never snag a jig. Now there are some flipping jigs, like this one I got the other day. This is the one I just showed that I've already trimmed. This weed guard is very soft, very flimsy. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but this one I would not spread out or trim or do anything. This weed guard, it's very flimsy, a little bit smaller, a little bit lower plastic count than this one. So I need all the protection I can get. All the hook point protection I get. If I trim this or spread it out at all, I'm going to be snagging, because very little pressure and that hook point's coming through. So it kind of depends on the jig you get. Some are more stiff than others. This one, stock, it was very stiff, very thick weed guard, so it needed some spreading, needed some bending out to just to make it a little bit thinner, easier to get that hook point through. Some won't, but so whenever I get a new jig, before I ever tie it on, before I ever fish it, I'm going to trim up that skirt right behind the bend of the hook. Doesn't matter too much the exact distance, but just trim it up an inch or so. And then if it's a really thick weed guard, I'll usually spread it out as opposed to trimming it like some guys do. Not that that's a wrong way to do it, but I just prefer to spread it. It gives me more hook protection as well as better hookup ratios.